This is part 2 about Jews being God's chosen people, because Dr. Mengele just responded with this little mini essay. I'm going to try and find it. Okay. So you're saying Dr. Mengele is an anti-Semite, and he's saying, well, the assumption is that anti-Semites deny that Jews are God's chosen people. And there are anti-Semites who are Christian and Muslim, and there are also anti-Semites who are atheists. And it seems that Dr. Mengele is an anti-Semite of the Christian variety. And he denies that Jews are God's chosen people. And I'm saying, as an agnostic, that, if that's what they know themselves to be, then that is what people will have to accept is the case. If they accept that the Abrahamic God exists, and if they accept that the Abrahamic God exists, then they have to accept that he made Jews his chosen people when he handed the Torah to Moses. Some people think this status can be withdrawn, cancelled, and I'm not saying it's impossible, but there are no signs of it. Christians have tried to unilaterally say, well, Jews are no longer God's chosen people because we are, and they have been unsuccessful. I know some Muslims who also deny that Jews are God's chosen people because they think that Jews have been so naughty that they no longer deserve that title. But somebody has to take it away, and just because you don't like them doesn't mean you have the right to take away their status, which, if you go with the narrative, is that God made Jews his chosen people, and it's up to him to withdraw that status, and he hasn't done so far. He acknowledges and this is because the Quran, which is the final revelation to mankind according to Muslim belief, so the Abrahamic God refers to Jews as the children of Israel, and Jews also call themselves the children of Israel. So they're talking about the same thing, So it's irrelevant whether Jews are good or naughty. They remain God's chosen people. And it doesn't mean that just because they are God's chosen people, they will be, blessed and always enjoying high status and good fortune. I don't make that assumption at all. For an omnipotent God, it is the easiest thing to keep a group in existence and make them suffer. Some of you may know about the story of Prometheus, who was punished by Zeus by being tied to a rock, I think. Hold on, let me find you the story of Prometheus. wasn't very nice for Prometheus to be punished for the theft of fire. So Zeus, king of the Olympian gods, sentenced Prometheus to eternal torment for his transgression of stealing fire. So Prometheus was bound to a rock, and an eagle, the emblem of Zeus, was sent to eat his liver. In ancient Greece, the liver was thought to be the seat of human emotions. His liver would then grow back overnight, only to be eaten again the next day in an ongoing cycle. Well, the story goes that Prometheus was eventually freed by Hercules. But anyway, that's a story. So you can remain in existence in order to be persecuted and pogromed and still remain in existence. So, just because they're not having a fun time doesn't mean that they're not God's chosen people. And this is something Dr. Mengele should understand. So he cites a reason. He's saying, well, because Jews are God's chosen people, they are supreme. And they're not, well, no. They're not really bossing us around, so we can't complain. I mean, if people were to complain about being bossed around by a group of people, they would be more likely to complain about being bossed around by the Americans. So Dr. Mengele assumes that God would not have allowed their temple to be destroyed, as well as the endless pogroms. And so no, they nothing about having their temple destroyed or being the victim of pogroms means that God doesn't exist. All God has to do is make sure that they remain in existence to annoy, Gentiles. The Torah says that Jews are never to have a homeland until the return of the Messiah. Does it say that? Are you sure? Chapter and verse, please, Dr. Mengele. Until then, Jews are never to have a homeland. Well, they do now, since 1948. They are to be traveling nomads. And the usual story about the wandering Jew. Well, they only wander from country to country, from European country to country, because they keep being kicked out and because the Christians were so inhospitable. Well, they fared better in Muslim empires because they were better treated there, because the Quran guarantees freedom of belief with chapter 2, verse 256. So Dr. Mengele believes that they are to be traveling nomads, which is punishment for rejecting God's only Son, Jesus Christ. And then he says, if they were truly chosen, there would be no COVID in Israel. No, just because Jews from time to time suffer misfortune for one reason or another, natural disaster or political persecution, the fact remains that they remain in existence. And this obviously upsets Dr. Mengele, and they appear to be indestructible. And this obviously upsets a lot of people who are jealous of their status. Now, I'm not jealous of their status at all. I don't long to be a Jew, because we know that if the whole thing is true, if the whole story of the Jews is true, then it means that the story of the afterlife is true, and then they're going to get punished for their transgressions, and they have to pay a higher price because they are, well, chosen to be light unto nations. So symbolically, Jews are the aristocracy of humanity because they're held to a higher standard. And, if you look at the pyramid and think of it as representing social hierarchy, and you get the elite right at the top, and there's not that many of them, and there's a whole bunch of people below them. So that makes sense, but that means you are subject to higher standards and therefore harsher penalties for the same transgression. So what would be not a crime for Gentiles is in fact a crime, a capital crime for Jews. So they are there is a trade-off. So I don't think just because Jews from time to time suffer misfortune mean that they are not God's chosen people, because if you read the Old Testament, you'll see that there's a chapter on curses for disobedience in Deuteronomy 28. So they're pretty terrible curses. And it's just saying that, it's the easiest thing for God, if he exists, to keep Jews in existence, to punish them in the way that Zeus kept Prometheus alive so he could be punished every day by having his liver eaten every day, only to grow back so that it could be eaten again the next day. So if you think of Jews as Prometheus, maybe you will not envy them so much. Talking about Prometheus, I've been going on about Jews being represented by Dr. Pangloss, the eternal optimist. I think what Dr. Pangloss does is use Jews as a kind of, as evidence of God, really. So he's saying, because Jews exist, God exists, because if God didn't exist, then Jews wouldn't exist. And in a way it's true, because the Abrahamic God is the God that Jews worship. And if he didn't exist, then Jews wouldn't exist, because Jews are the first people to worship the Abrahamic God. Well, actually, that's a bit confusing, because I've suddenly thought that Jews didn't really become Jews until Moses and Abraham and Noah came before Moses. I'll try and make sense of this. So, once upon a time, everybody was the same status, really, according, in God's eyes, because God had yet to choose his people, his chosen people. And then apparently things were so bad and evil that God sent a flood to wash away the sins of the world, and then he had to promise not to ever do it again, and he did promise never to do it again. And I guess he thought, but if I never do it again, these people will just go back to what they were when they were so, when they made me so angry, it made me want to wash them away. So perhaps I'll give them something to stop them from becoming so evil. And then maybe he thought to himself, I know, I'll make Jews my chosen people to stop Gentiles from being so bad, because they're supposed to teach and know high laws. And then, well, that's the idea anyway. Because if Jews successfully taught the Noahide laws to Gentiles, then all of humanity would live under God's laws. And that must have been the divine plan. So Jews were kind of mechanical hare of the dog track, basically. So in a dog track, they would the dogs have to chase something. They need, they don't know to run. Just because the gates go open, they might not know what they're supposed to do. So there's a mechanical hare that goes around the dog track, right? It's kind of pacer. So the dogs, go round. They never catch it, but they see it in the distance and they run after it, and that sort of idea. So yeah, that's a neat little theory, isn't it? So God made Jews, his chosen people, to teach Gentiles the Noahide laws. And they haven't done it, and so that's why they suffer from anti-Semitism, and now they're too afraid to do it, because to do it now would invite questions about why they didn't do it before. And currently they're too frightened to talk about it, and I'm encouraging them to talk about it, because we just need a dialogue, and when the dialogue takes place, everything will come to its desired resolution. But somebody has to, start the ball rolling. I can only suggest ways in which this could be done, and obviously we need to show Jews that it's okay. You can rank your 4 Gentile religions. In fact, you should. It's actually imperative that you do rank the 4 Gentile religions to make up on lost time for all the 2,000 years you haven't been teaching the Noahide laws. Because if you had taught the Noahide laws, then most people would be Muslim. Because the best way of Jews teaching the Noahide laws is to rank the 4 Gentile religions. So everybody's involved, the Christians, the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Muslims. So that's what they should do, but they're a bit shy because, they remember the history of being persecuted by Christians, and I'm trying to embolden them, really, but they're a bit difficult to deal with because they're frightened. And I'm just saying, if some Gentile were to, tell them that, let's just start some sort of dialogue so they can, so we can get the ball rolling. That's what I hope, anyway. So I just want to remind Dr. Mengele that just because Jews don't always enjoy high status doesn't mean that they are not God's chosen people. Because just like Zeus, God could be just keeping Jews around to teach them a lesson. And that's all I want to say. Thank you very much for listening. I hope it made some sense.